Hello all my JavaScript friends, this is the Virtuoid, aka Mike Smith, and this is Fun with JavaScript, our cache defense game. Well, it's been a while again, that's what happens when you have a new puppy, but we're back at recording, and today we're going to be taking a look at the cache controller. We're going to be taking a look at the CacheTower controller. This is going to be the controller that will control, because it's called a controller, the cache tower in the middle of the screen that we are actually trying to defend. So before we get into it, you can always take a look at everything we're doing at github.com/thevirtuoid/FWJS-cache-defense. Go to the main branch if you want to take a look at everything we're currently doing, or you can take a look at the different branches that are out there for where we were on different levels. For instance, I'm looking at the cache defense, the cache. What are we looking at? No, we're looking at the CacheTower controller. So if you take a look at CacheTower controller branch, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about here. You can also go to thevirtuoid@gmail.com and email me, and I'll be more than happy to answer you if I feel like answering you. Or you can go to https://funwithjavascript.com to see everything that we have been doing. Alrighty, so the CacheTower controller, this is going to be a very simple controller. It works just like all the other ones, but just a little bit different because the tower actually controls basically when our game is over. We're going to have to be able to create the new tower, of course. We're going to be able to adjust the health of the tower. You know, for instance, if a monster gets to the tower and it goes down, or if in the future we have some sort of token or something that we can automatically increase the health of the tower, we need to be able to take care of that. Plus, we also need to know when the game is over. And of course, when the game is over is when the health of the tower reaches 0 or below, in case there's a sudden onslaught of monsters. So let's get to it. So we're going to go into our E2E. Let's zoom in on the directory here. And I'm going to create a new JavaScript file. We're going to call it CacheTowerController.cy.js. And let me pop some code inside here and explain what we're going to be doing. And through the magic of television, there we are. So this is all that we have to work with on the controller. And basically it works exactly the same way as I had mentioned before. We're going to be able to have some tests that we're going to talk about the creation. The creation of the controller object itself, to be able to create a new cache tower, to be able to adjust its health positively or negatively, and also to know when the game is over. As you can tell here, also we are missing some controllers at the CacheTowerController.js and our CacheTower.js. Our cache tower is the actual physical cache tower model, while CacheTower controller is the controller for the cache tower. Of course, that makes sense, doesn't it? Of course it does. So let's create those two files, and we're going to be creating those. Let me just make sure I've got everything correct here. Let's go back over to the directory, and let's collapse that so we can see what the heck we're doing. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create it inside the controllers here, and that controller is going to be our CacheTower controller. So let's create a new JavaScript directory and type in CacheTower controller. And of course, the way that the way Windows works, I guess is more than anything, it's not showing the window, the new JavaScript file thing is not showing up inside of our video here. So trust me when I said I've created a CacheTower controller. You can kind of, let's go back to the directory. See, you can see it right there. See, created a CacheTower controller. All right. So we've created the CacheTower controller. Let's just throw some very quick code in there. Just going to be simple, you know, export default class. Man, I cannot type to save myself. Class CacheTower controller. That's all we're going to do for that particular one. All right, so if we take a look at our test, we're also going to need inside classes CacheTower.js. So let's flip back over to our directory. And within the directory, let's kill the controllers, and let's actually also kill that so we can see everything on the screen here. Yep, there it is. So within here, we're going to type in our CacheTower.js. So we'll type that in, CacheTower. And there it is. It's been created. Of course, there's absolutely zero code in there, so let's pop some quick little code inside of there. That will be export default class CacheTower. And we'll just leave it at that. So now basically we've got that now satisfies everything with here within the CacheTowerController .test there. So let's go ahead and run our test. Remember, we're doing test-driven development here. So, we write our test, watch it fail, write our code, watch it succeed, then refactor if we need to refactor. So let's go ahead and start those tests. So let's go over to our command prompt. Where is our command prompt? There it is. And within our command prompt, we'll type in npx Cypress open. Now, I've just upgraded my Cypress to 13, so this may take a little bit of time. So we'll see you on the other side once we get to our next screen. And it looks like we're into our next screen. So, hey, there it is. Welcome to Cypress. So our E2E is already configured, so we're going to click on E2E testing, which is what we're going to do. It's going to initialize testing. And it's going to go into start E2E testing in Chrome. And once I click on this, we'll then get to our next screen. Okay, we're there. So let's flip over to our test screen. Here's all of our different tests. We're going to be running the CacheTower Defense and CacheTowerController. So let's click on CacheTowerController, let it run. And of course, it's going to fail all over the place. So basically, as you can tell here, CacheTowerController, newCacheTower is not a function. So this is just a sample. Obviously, every one of our tests failed. Actually, one of them succeeded because we do actually have the one test that did succeed. Let's see if I can bring that up on the screen here. Yep, there it goes. That should be it. Yeah. See, the one test that did succeed is it did create the object, which of course we had already created our classes. So there it is. No big deal. Alrighty, so we've got that done. Let's flip back over to our code and let's go ahead now and start diving in completely into what we want to do with each one of these different describes here. So first of all, we're going to take a look at the creation. Okay, within the creation itself, basically it's going to be very simple. We just want to make sure that it does create, which it already does. This is the one test that did succeed. So this is the first test that failed. And it would have failed because we don't have a game over that has been defined within CacheTowerController. And this game over needs to be true. So all we need to do now is we need to go over to CacheTowerController and let's insert that code for the game over. And through the magic of television, there it is. So all we've really done here is just basically create ourselves a private variable called game over and made it read only by saying just doing a getter function to return game over, and we're setting the initial game over to true. So if we flip back to our code, our test code itself, and let's zoom in on in there, and then let's make sure it reruns. We'll click on run all tests. It's still going to give us a whole ton of different errors, but now as you can see here, I'm getting my screens messed up here. So as you can see here, we got should create test object and should set the defaults to be correct. So those two are correct. So now let's take a look at the new CacheTower. It basically says that new CacheTower is not a function. So what do we need the new CacheTower to do? Basically to create the actual CacheTower object for us so that it can be operated on at various points in time within the controller. That's all that really needs to be done. So let's flip back over to WebStorm. And let's go ahead and go to our CacheTowerController test. Let's just knock that off and let's take a look at the CacheTower test. And through the magic of television, there it is. Let's zoom into the top here so we can see it a little bit better. So here we go. We got a for each, and this is a very simple for each. I just want to make sure we create the CacheTowerController itself. And then, so we should be able to create a new cache. So we just do a CacheTowerController, and then we're going to make sure it is equal to the default health. So you can tell here we already got two new things. We got a method called newCacheTower, and it looks like we want to have an enum here called default health. So that's so we already know we're going to have that to have to deal with. Should throw an exception if it is not an integer, if the argument is not an integer. So if we don't put if we put an argument inside there that is not an integer, it's going to throw health is not an integer. So already we know that, we can know two things now. If we do newCacheTower by itself with no arguments, it's going to give us a default, it will give us a default health. But we can also pass in an argument, and that argument obviously now needs to be some sort of number. So in this case it is, we do get the not integer error message if it's not integer. So if it is less than 1, It also It also will give an error message. So I'm just testing to make sure we pass a 0. It will get messages less than 1. So therefore, this is another message we're going to need. And then we just need to check to make sure it actually set the health. So we need to make sure that we have a health variable, and we have a new cache. When we run newCacheTower, that our health variable is going to be equal to what we set it for. And then finally, we need to check, we should be able to set the game over flag, because if we set the health of a tower, the game over flag is going to be used if the tower health equals 0 or less. But we can't enter a 0 here as when we create a new argument. So by default, when we create a new cache tower, game over should automatically be set back to false, because we can't set it to 0. So that's basically what we're looking at here. We got to make sure that game over gets set to false. We've got to make sure that our health gets set correctly. We got to make sure we throw this particular error if we try to pass a number that is less than 1. Whoops. Try that again. We're going to basically give this particular error message if we don't pass an integer number to our cache tower. And then finally, we're going to set the default health automatically if we just don't pass any arguments whatsoever. So let's throw the code in there and see what happens. And through the magic of television, here we are. So here's our default health. Here's our game over cache tower. So we're creating a new cache tower down here, and we're setting the game over to false. And we're being able to get the game over, so we need to take a look at what game over here. And we're being able to take a look at what our health is on this particular get the health here on this particular cache tower. So all this should work, right? Well, not quite, because let's just take a look at it. Let's go back to our test screen. In fact, let's zoom it on in, and let's rerun the test. I'll go up here and click on that. Let's go back up to the very test here. Should create a new cache. No, it did not. Expected undefined to equal 10. Well, what happened? Didn't we set it to default 10? That's weird. Should throw an exception if argument is not an integer. Can't read the properties of undefined, reading message. So where'd that message come from? Should throw an exception if argument is less than 1. Still can't read properties of reading the message. Should set the health. Expected undefined to equal to 3. And it's undefined. Well, at least the game over flag worked. So what happened here? Well, the problem here is let's go back to our code. If you take a look at our code, we actually got 2 pieces to this. It's not just the controller we were testing. Let's go back over to here. For instance, let's create a new cache here. Here we have the default health, and we have the health here for the controller. But if we take a look at the health, if you take a look at the CacheTowerController, here's our health, and here's our default health. So why did that fail? Well, the reason it failed was that when we do create the new cache tower down here, we're going to create a new cache tower. However, we've got absolutely 0 code inside of our cache tower. So everything bombed from there. So basically, create a new cache tower, but there is no health on the cache tower. So when it returned CacheTowerHealth here, it returned an undefined. And that's the reason we got the undefined did not equal to 10. So what do we want to do here? Well, we want to start throwing code within our cache tower. Oh, and also, by the way, that's also the problem here with the exceptions. Notice the exceptions are on cache tower, not on CacheTowerController. So let's go over to cache tower and let's throw some code inside there. Okay, and through the magic of television, there it is, cache tower. So now it's starting to make a little bit more sense. Here is our health is not an integer error message already. Here is our health is less than 1 error message, and here's our another default health. Now I don't know why this default health is inside here, but is also inside here. Well, see, I got an error inside here, because the cache tower shouldn't be declaring. Actually, let me rephrase that. I think the cache tower actually needs to declare the default health of the cache tower, not the cache tower itself. So this is actually in error here. We will fix that. We've got to refactor, so we'll fix that. So no big deal. But here's our health. Here's our constructor, and of course, we're setting up the health itself. Here's what we're checking for. If it's the if it's integer, here's where we're checking for it's less than 1. And of course, obviously, we're throwing the error messages as need be. And then we're setting the health. And here's where we're finally getting to health down here. Let's see if I can scroll that. Well, I can't really scroll that up. So let's go to the bottom. There we go. So here's the health itself. So now everything should work within our controller here for the new CacheTower. Well, let's flip back over to Cypress and check that out. Let's zoom back in and let's hit rerun. See what happens. And look at that. There it is. Should create a new cache. The 2 exceptions were thrown. Should set the health. And now the game over flag. That's it. That's all that needs to be done on the new CacheTower. Cool. So let's now flip back over to our cache controller. Okay, let's take a look now at adjustCacheTowerHealth. Very simple here. Basically, we're going to throw an error if there's no CacheTower present. That's no big deal there. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're also then going to say when the CacheTower is present. We want to be able to throw exception if the argument is not an integer. So basically what we're going to do here is that once we call adjustCacheTowerHealth, we're going to adjust it by a certain number. Well, if that's not a number, we're going to throw, basically an error message. CacheTower error adjust health argument not an integer. No big deal there. We should be able to add to the health, so we should be able to figure out how the health got added to 1. We should be able to subtract and make sure that it is subtracted correctly. And we also need to make sure that if the health has gone to 0 or below, that it always resets itself back to 0, because I don't want it to go below 0. I want to be absolutely certain that we're always going to have 0 or a positive number. So if the number happens to go down, which this one will, this will go down. Actually, let's, yeah, that's right. This one will go down by twice the default health, so that should now still come out to be equal to 0, even though it should technically be -10 or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So once we run everything, let's just run everything again. Let's go back over to our test screen. Everything gets run, and as you can tell there, errors are going all over the place. I'm not even going to zoom in there because it's got errors all over the place. So let's pop in the code and see what happens. So let's go back to our top zoom. Let's go to our CacheTowerController and let's pop in that code. And through the magic of television, here's our code. The first thing here is that we did have a new error message here, and you can see that at the very top. There it is. We've added that error message inside there. Let's go now flip back down to the very bottom, and that will allow us now to adjust our health. Now the key here is that we're adjusting the health based upon the CacheTower. So we're going to need the same type of code inside CacheTower. So let's flip over to CacheTower and let's throw some code inside there. And through the magic of television, there it is. So here's our adjust health. That basically we're going to throw the error message in case it's not an integer. That should satisfy the other one. And here's that new error message right there. Then we should be able to basically plus or minus the health. And here's the biggie right here is that we're also going to reset the health to be a max of this health comma 0. Yes, I could have done this all in one line, but I split it up just to make it a little bit easier to understand for the next developer to come across here. So again, we're going to add or subtract it based upon whether the health is positive or negative, but we're also going to force it to be 0 if it happens to be less than 0. So that just basically, that takes care of everything for us on the adjust health. So that should satisfy all of our different test. So let's go over to our test and let's check it to make sure. Let's rerun. And let's zoom in actually so we can see what's going on here. Alrighty, adjust help. Should throw an error when there is no cache present. Yep. That should throw the error if it's not an integer. Should add the health. It should subtract from the health and should set to 0 if the argument went below 0. So yep, all that is cool. Looks like we just have one error left. We got to know when the game is over. Let's take a look at that. So let's flip back over to our code. And let's go over to our controller code. Let's take a look at that. Know when the game is over. Okay, so we're going to do the before each, which is just going to do a new cache tower. We're going to do a base health of 5. So it should set the game over to false, which basically means that when we adjust the CacheTower health of -3, it should have a game over equals false. But now, so here's something that's very interesting now. So we are setting the adjust CacheTower health to be a -3, but we are immediately knowing game over is going to immediately flip to false or true depending upon whether the game is over or not. So obviously with this one down here, yeah, you can still see it. We got the same thing right here, is that game over is automatically getting adjusted once adjustCacheTowerHealth gets changed. So that would mean that we need to, within our controller, let's go down to the bottom here of the code, within our controller here, within the adjustCacheTowerHealth, we're going to need to be able to set whether the game is over or not. So every time that tower health changes, we got to either have the game over or the game continues on. So let's throw some of that code inside there. I'm not even going to go through the magic of television in this case. I'm just going to throw it in there because it's real simple. So there's our determine game over. This is, now notice it's a private method, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So this is where we set game over. You know, basically game over CacheTower is equal to null, or, which means it makes basically game over if that's true, or if the health is equal to 0. So therefore we know that the game, so game over will be true if we know that either the cache tower is not there or that is equal to 0. So both of these are false, then the game over is false. So all we really have to do now is add one piece of code within our adjustCacheTowerHealth to be able to call determine game over. So that will automatically tell us every time we adjust the CacheTowerHealth, that will immediately let us know whether the game is over or not. So that should satisfy all of these here. Let me bring it back up to the screen. That should satisfy both of these exceptions. The game over is true and the game over is false. So let's go back to our test and take a look at it. Notice at the top there it says 14 good. Yep, 14 good, nothing bad, everything works. Let's kick that out so we know when the game is over. There we go. Now you can see when the game is over. So yep, game over false, game over true, all that works. So what I want to do here now, just to be on the safe side, is I have changed my code here. So let's run all the rest of these tests to make sure all of them are still occurring correctly. Because if they don't, then we got a significant problem. So I'm just going through. I'm not going to run. Well, actually, I can run that one. Okay. I forgot, yeah. I'm working on the browser version of some of the tests. Now, you can't run the browser version without the browser being up and running. So there we go. All of them still work. So as long as all of them still work, then we're okay. And that pretty much completes it. We now have got the cache controller all up and pretty and ready to go. For now, that is all on the CacheTowerController. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please click on the like button below. If you wish to keep informed about new content, click on the subscribe button. And as always, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you very much for watching. This is the Virtuoid, aka Mike Smith. We'll see you later.